This is Healing Through Love. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Healing Through Love. My name is Olivia Luna, and I'm just a 32-year-old single woman who has never been in love before. And this podcast is my journey to find a healthy, healing, long-term monogamous relationship. Along the way, I'm going to get to talk to some amazing people, friends, experts in the fields of dating and relationships. And today I'm going to be speaking with Amanda Kate. Amanda Kate is a kinesiologist, mentor, mother, and more. Author of Divine, Messy Human, A Spiritual Guide to Prioritizing Internal Truth Over External Influence, she released the book with the information, tips, and practices that have helped her move from self-loathing to self-acceptance, self-love, and self-empowerment. A recovering people pleaser and self-flagellator, she walks the path striding the divine and messy daily, always growing, developing, and learning new ways of being to hopefully one day leave the earth better than she found it. Amanda Kate helps people to regain their vitality, smashing through their internal glass ceiling and limitations to find new levels of health, vitality, and abundance. She also works with business owners to increase their vibration and attract greater wealth and prosperity. Amanda lives in Melbourne, Australia with her twin flame, her children, his children, and a dog named Zeus. Now, before we get into today's talk, just a reminder, if you are loving this podcast, please consider giving a 5-star review. It really helps in just extending our reach. As well, there is an option to become a monthly donor. If you hit the support link in the show notes, you can select your donation amount. Any amount at all helps, again, to just grow and further the podcast. Also, feel free to share and tag us on social media at solidarity_media. And you can head to solidaritymediaproductions.com to learn more. If you're watching this episode on Spotify, we also have some polls and questions below each episode where you can submit your answers to. So get involved in the conversation, everyone. And with that, I'm excited to get into today's talk. All right, everyone. So I have with me today the lovely Amanda Kate, who is a can you help me say it? Kinesiologist, mentor, mother, and so much more. Amanda, it's been wonderful to have you and to dive into kind of a little bit of your work behind the scenes. Would love to just kind of start. First off, how are you?
Yeah, doing really well. Yeah, it's early morning here and I'm tomorrow. So, yeah.
Yeah, you're in the future. We love it. This is a groundbreaking moment talking to somebody in the future. Can you tell us a little bit about, how your practice kind of began, and how you sort of got started in the work that you're doing today?
Yeah, look, I think I don't think anybody gets to the healing arts or coaching or any of those sorts of things without having gone through, their own fair share of, hard times. And I'm no different to that. I was in a toxic marriage and, things were not great. I basically hated myself and I kind of just started going, surely this isn't all life has for us. Surely there's got to be something different because I I just felt like I was an empty shell of a human being. I felt like I wasn't living the life that I was supposed to live. And I was at a loss to work out why and how all of this had sort of fallen into place. People had talked to me about loving being with their partner and loving all of their, interactions. And I was like, I don't get it. I just don't understand. And there were lots of simple things about life I just didn't get because I didn't have that supportive, loving partner. I had a critical, judgmental, person who used to put me down all the time and whom I could never do anything right by. And that was really challenging and tough. And so it made me start to react a lot more. I would have these outbursts. I wasn't being the kind of person that I knew I could be or should be or, wanted to be. And that led me to getting a lot of different help. So I ended up with chronic fatigue in 2013. And I swear it was because I was so tightly wound all the time and constantly in hypervigilance and constantly on edge of, is this going to be right today? Is this going to be wrong today? Am I going to get through today, relatively unscathed? Or is it all going to come crashing down on me? It was just this constant tightly wound spring, and holding on to that, I guess it had to go somewhere, and my body just couldn't hold that tension anymore. And so chronic fatigue ended up coming through about 2013. And at the beginning of 2015, I just felt like an empty shell of a human being. So I went and got help with the psychologist, but they couldn't get me in for another month. And the receptionist said to me, "So who's got your back? Because it sounds pretty stressful." And I said, nobody. And I just burst into tears. and and she said, "Have you tried kinesiology?" And I was like, "Nope, let's give it a try." And I had no idea what to expect when I first went in, like none. But I was just so desperate and went in there, and she just asked me a few questions, and it's energy work. So they use, we use manual muscle testing, which people like Bruce Lipton and Joe Dispenza and, some of the other people who work in energy testing talk about, David Hawkins. We use manual muscle testing to be able to read what's going on in the subconscious. So if the electrical signal is strong and uninterrupted, the muscle will hold. If there's a stress in the system, the muscle can't hold its tone. So we're really reading that electrical signal, which comes through subconscious cues. And she said to me at one point in the session, "You have no idea how emotionally abused you are, do you?" And I was like, "What?" Explain this to me. Um, and as we started to go through our sessions over the coming months, it was just opening up parts of myself that I'd forgotten were there, that I felt like I was remembering. It allowed me to understand what was going on in my life, because I had no other points of reference really to use. And it was fascinating. And within 6 months of starting that first session, I was sitting in the classroom learning how to do kinesiology and energy healing, because it had just completely changed my life.
Mm.
Mm.
Wow, that's so incredible. And from just
Yeah.
from a meeting with a receptionist, really, like
Mm.
the, like you weren't even in with the doctor necessarily. So
No.
that's incredible and
Mm.
very, I don't know. I guess I practice Buddhism, and we just believe in really
Mm.
like, aligning with like the natural sort of flow of
Yes.
the universe. And it
Yeah.
feels like, hearing your story, it just sounds like you were in the right place, the right
Mm.
time, meeting the right person,
Yeah.
which is
She was
great.
put there divinely. She really was.
Absolutely. But then
She asked me the
also,
right question.
for sure. Also, though, I'm realizing that, like, through you taking that effort to really want to see this change and that shift in your life, like that also, what sort
Mm.
of
Yeah.
initiated that kind of like alignment as well. I wanted,
Mm.
as I hear your story, it makes me think about, when I started my therapy journey, and just healing in general.
Mm.
It was at the height of the pandemic. I very similar, was just like
Mm.
so distraught, so depressed, could not get off the couch, felt like, why am I so tired all the time? Why do I have this anxiety? And obviously there are
Mm.
very clear reasons
Bigger
for it.
reasons.
But there was also just like this like no ability to fight
Mm.
back in any way, which is something that I've never really experienced in my life.
Yeah.
I've always been a fighter. And so the fact that I just didn't have it, I knew I had to kind of like start something. Can you talk a little bit about like what were some of the, like, I don't know, side effects or cues or things to tell you something is not right, or just I
Mm.
need to, make the shift here?
So it really did start when I started needing 3-hour naps in the afternoon, back in
Mm.
2013 of, I could not get through a day. And I'd noticed that, when I did a workout, I would still be sore 3, 4 days later, instead of, you get your soreness a little bit the next day and then proper DOMS, 2 days
Mhm.
later where you can't move. And then it starts to get better. Whereas I would still have that day 2 soreness on day 3, 4. And I was like, this is strange. I don't know if I would have used the words heals better, but, I knew that that soreness wasn't normal. I was suffering for up to 13 days with my menstrual cycle. So I would have 6 days around ovulation where I was, had all the premenstrual symptoms, and then 7 days around bleed. So I was literally suffering with that for half the month. And then I went to a gynecologist, and he went, "Well, you've tried everything, so here's some antidepressants you could try." And I'm going, "But how are antidepressants going to help?" And he said, "Well, it's the same way we don't just use the pill for birth control." And I don't know, massive alarm bells just went off for me going, this just doesn't feel
Yeah.
right. Like
Right.
there's just something here that's not
Mm,
quite lining up. And it felt like a really big brush off, which I know most women have had in doctors' offices more than once in their life of you're overreacting, it's not that bad, get over it type
mm.
attitude. And I felt like it was just a here's a prescription, get out of my office because I don't know what to do with you type attitude. And it was very confronting because I'm going, what else do I do? Like, what else do I try? And around that time, I started seeing a naturopath who I trained with at the gym, and she took me off gluten for a start, and that started to make some difference. And then over the years, I then found a chiropractor who I still remember walking out of the office the first time. It was like, I can't feel my upper back. Like,
Oh,
I've been able to feel my upper back since I was 16 with just
wow.
constant either pressure or pain. And I was walking around going, oh, this feels really strange.
Yeah.
And I just kept finding these alternative therapies. And then I got recommended to go to a Chinese doctor. And I had about four different therapists, or, it was the Chinese doctor, my kinesiologist, my psychologist, and I can't remember the other one. They all told me I had my naturopath, all told me I had chronic fatigue. But it took all four of them telling me I had chronic fatigue for my ex-husband to even get close to believing it, because he was always like, oh, you're always tired. What's wrong with you? It's always worse for you, blah, blah. Like it was always this, you're doing something wrong. What's wrong with you type attitude. And I'm going, no, there's something wrong. I am not functioning. And he'd be like, oh, stop complaining. And it was like, I'm not complaining. And so it was just this really gradual finding one thing and finding that it would help, and then finding another thing and finding it would help. The thing that kinesiology did was it was actually shifting out some of those subconscious programmings. So I was starting to understand why I was the way that I was, what emotions were stuck in my body, where they were stuck, why it was affecting my physical health in the way that it was, because almost none of it was physical in nature. It was emotional, it was psychological, it was energetic, it was spiritual, it was relational. There was all of these other things that it was, and physical was the way it was manifesting in the world, not what the problem was. And yet all doctors want to do is get rid of your symptoms. They don't want to treat the underlying problem of what's creating the illness in the first place, what's creating the dis-ease, what's creating the lack of vitality. Because they're in sick care. They just don't want you to be sick. They're not in health care where they're looking to get you to be the healthiest, most vibrant version of yourself. And so now what I do is I work with healthcare professionals who want me to be the fittest, most vibrant, most vital version of myself. Because to me, that's where I want to sit. I don't just want to be not sick.
Yeah.
I
We
kind of
want
want
to
to be a bit
be,
better than that.
yeah, we want to be healed. We want to be happy and moving along in our life.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I definitely I see how like not having that supportive partner
Mm.
also, can delay a lot of people, for
Oh,
anybody who's
yeah.
listening, and just like
Yeah.
you got to be surrounded by folks who are just in line with what the work that you're trying to do, right? The healing
Yeah.
that you're trying to have in your life, especially if
Mm.
it's in a physical format, and like
Yeah.
you're trying to like get the help and no one's believing you, like
Yeah.
that's part of the reason why like I'm, as I get older and I think about starting a family, I get worried about seeing the maternity
Mm.
death rates, for Black women in particular, and just the fact that
Yeah.
they're
Oh.
expressing this physical like pain, or there's something
Mm.
wrong in your body, right? Like we know our bodies, and we
Yeah.
know what, unconsciously or consciously, like we know what's happening there and when something's
Yeah.
wrong. So developing that voice and that confidence to assert yourself when you,
Mm.
you know something is off here, and
Yeah.
I need help. I need to change. I need to do something different.
Mm.
It's so crucial and so important to like really strengthening that. Um, can you talk a little bit more about, so in the kinesiology,
Mm.
are there certain practices or techniques? What can people kind of expect when if they start that journey?
So it is using manual muscle testing to basically read what's going on in the subconscious. So even online when I'm working with you, at the moment we're tuned into each other's radio station. That's how we're having this connection. That's how we're
Hmm.
having this conversation. Now, what I also do when I'm working with people online is it's like I throw an energetic blanket over them to be able to read the other bits, but then I muscle test on myself. Um, but when obviously people are in clinic, I use their muscles. So people can see when there's stress because they can feel, they can't just see their muscle tone change, they can feel it change as well. And I think that's a
Mm.
really important part, almost to prove that I'm not just going, well, this is what's going on. Like they can
Right.
see something happening.
Oh,
And that
wow.
for me was really important when I started out because I was like, it was so woo woo and out there, which I now realize it's not at all. But that was my perception. And I know it's a lot of people's perception. But I think the fact is, we're working in that quantum physics field where they've proven that the universe is about 4% physical matter, which means this physical meat suit is 4% of the picture. So, what we're looking at in the healing is what's the rest of you? As I
Mm.
said before, the mental, emotional, energetic, spiritual, sexual, relational, you know, cultural, all of those different things come together to make you who you are. And it may not just be one of those pieces that's out of alignment, because all of those pieces bleed together and feed together to make you you. And so what
Mm.
we're reading is that energy flow, those electrical signals that aren't as conducive as they need to be. Your body should be this beautiful harmonic resonance of energy, and we deny our emotions, we suppress things, we repress things, we hide them away because we're ashamed of them. I often get that picture in my head of you just mentioned you don't have kids, but the Cat in the Hat book, you might still remember,
Mhm, yeah.
where he just sweeps everything under the carpet and he's standing on top of the carpet,
It's
and
this
it's like
big
this blue,
mound of
blue, 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 blue.
Yep,
And
that's what's
that's what
happening.
we do with all of the
Whew.
crap in our life because we don't want to deal with it, and we're told we can't deal with it. We're told we shouldn't be dealing it. We're told we shouldn't be feeling that.
Mm.
There's all these shoulds and these shouldn'ts and this expectation and this cultural soup that we swim in, where it's the top 0.5% of white men basically have all the rest of us you know doing what they need us to do
Mhm.
to maintain status quo. And it's like, we're all stuck in that, we're all swimming in it, and everybody is being damaged by it. Every single person, apart from those top few, and even they are being damaged by it. Mother Earth is being damaged by it. And what we should all be doing, if we are in our true harmonic resonance, there isn't that. There isn't that power over. It's all power with, power to, power together in the collective. It's the raising tide raises all the boats, not I need to drown you to get ahead and climb up over you. It's not that. And our bodies know that natural state. Thinking back to when we worked, obviously it's much closer for some, in terms of history than others, but in terms of, when we used to be tribal people, because all of us originally came from that. We used to work together. People had their roles. We used to work in harmony with the cycles of the earth. We used to honor Mother Nature. And then all of a sudden you hit the Bronze Age, and we're, shepherded into cities to serve, the landowners. And, you know, all of a sudden things start to change. And God is separated from us and taken up and put in a cloud with intermediaries so we can't access him directly. And here we are today, sick, unwell, not living our best lives, not in touch with nature, not in touch with each other, not in communion. And that to me blows my mind. And what I feel kinesiology has given me is a return to my spiritual state. It's given me a return to connection with Mother Earth. I'm out, every day for over about 2 hours, if not more, definitely more if I can get it in, where I'm communing more with the land and with people in a very, very different way now, because it isn't about this power over structure where we have to be ahead of whoever's beneath us. And if we let them catch up or if we let them get ahead, then we're going to suffer, because that's not the truth of it. The truth is, if I help you get up to the next rung and we climb up to the next one together and we reach down and we help those who are struggling to come up with us, we're all going to be better off. And that's just the state of it. That's just the truth of it. But the problem is there's so few people who seem to know that truth. And, everyone wants to scramble and push everyone else down to the next rung so they can get up one. But I feel like that's where the shift is happening. That's what this kind of work is helping me do. It's helping people rebuild that harmonic resonance within themselves. And then that is that drop in the ocean. Other people then see them becoming more harmonious and they're like, oh, I want a bit of that. And it spreads. And you don't become more selfish doing this work if you're doing it, in that kind of way. You become more self-full, you become more community minded, you become more empathic and compassionate. And that's for me what it's really brought through.
Wow. I cannot
Sorry.
wait to like,
That was
no,
a bit of a long one.
I love it. I can't wait to like dive more into it. It just sounds like it sounds like we as people are, I don't want to say disconnected, because it's like we're disconnected from self and core,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
connected to grind and hustle and the
Yeah.
machine that just kind of, it's like being in the Matrix,
Yeah.
right? Like we got to unplug
Yeah.
ourselves and like wake up to reality. Because I
Yeah.
think like for a long time that was what stalled me from like starting any kind of like
Mhm.
healing, or even recognizing like I was in this pain. I was just trying to survive, right? Like trying to
Yeah.
work. I work in video production, and sometimes being on set for really long hours on my feet, moving
Yeah.
around, and I'd get home and just like, it's no wonder I just flop down and just feel,
Yeah.
both physically, energetically, and emotionally too. I'm a big
Mm.
empath. And so like, even just walking like down the block, I can feel like
Yeah.
everybody and everything that's around me. And so I live in New York City right now. So much is just like, I feel like it just hits me throughout the day in
Yeah.
just like, transit, and just, trying to get from one place to
Mm.
another. And it was a huge turning point when I, started doing like more physical therapy kind of work and stuff, and understanding like the way that I was holding my body before, like
Mhm.
that I had normalized that so much. And the second, like you said, when you went to the chiropractor and you feel like totally different, it's like, wait, this is, it's like seeing for the first time or
Yeah.
hearing for the first time. It's like, wait a minute, what are all these
Yeah.
colors and what is this like length that I have in my body,
Yes.
like, so I'm very much interested in like diving more into your work and,
Mm.
understanding, the things that it could do to help me. Can
Mm.
you talk a little bit particularly about how it impacts like our relationships? I'm started this
Mm.
podcast and as my
Yes.
journey to find love. How
Mm.
that's impacted your relationships.
Oh, I mean, look, let's face it. Within 4 months of my first session, I recognized, because when she said to me, "You have no idea how emotionally abused you are," I went, "Oh, yeah, that makes sense with these people." I
Mm-hmm.
didn't see my biggest emotional abuser for another 4 months. It was the August. And it was because a girlfriend of mine sat down and basically went, she said, "You have no idea how fucked up your relationship is, do you?" And I went, "What do you mean?" She went, "It's not fucking normal." And I went, "Okay, explain it to me." She went, and she went through all these examples. And I went, "Oh, okay." And because she was brave enough to say that to me, I was then able to put it together. I'm like, how did I not see that? Because I didn't want to see it, because then I had to change my life. I had no other choice. Once you get realizations like that, it's like this massive smack in the face. And it took me another 4 months to be able to leave. And interestingly, in my sessions with my kinesiologist and my psychologist, I remember one was on a Tuesday, one was on a Thursday, and both of them said, completely obviously unaware of the other's comment, just go home and look up narcissistic personality disorder. And I went, what do you mean? They said, I can't say any more than that. Just look it up. And I was like, oh, and literally that Thursday night, because I had the one session on the Tuesday, one session on the third, literally that Thursday night, I went, we're done. We're done. We cannot do this anymore. We're done. And that was then the start of it, because then what I did was I spent a good, oh gosh, it was 2 years fully working on myself. I dove into my study and literally did all of the courses. I did about 6 years worth of study in 4 years. I did not just my kinesiology diploma, I did my advanced diploma of kinesiopractic studies, which does another, I don't know, 2,500 hours of work or something crazy. I did all of these advanced hormones and glands and quantum neurology and advanced techniques and like all of these different things, because I was like so fascinated in what I was learning about myself and understanding then how it could help other people. And it was just like walking into this whole new world I didn't know about. Energy healing and the body being able to tell us everything that is not congruent with who and what we are and want to be, and being able to make those vibrational shifts to go into wellness. And so I spent 2 years just deep diving, and eventually I kind of went, okay, I think I'm ready. I think I'm ready to start dating. And so I put my profile out, because literally I had so much school on and so much study. I figure I either have to use an online dating site, or they're going to have to run into me at the supermarket with a trolley, because I don't go
That's
anywhere
it.
else.
Yeah.
Like, we
Yeah.
got 2 channels. So guys, help me out here. And so I set up, my online profile. And then I'd try and, make sure that I caught up in person within, a few days, because I wasn't there to, to muck around. In Australia, we say you're not here to fuck spiders, which basically just means you're not there to mess around.
Yeah, don't mess with the spiders in Australia. That's the one thing I know.
But yeah, it's like you're not here to mess around. And so I would try and meet people within a couple of days, and I'd go, okay, go to for a coffee date, and I'd be like, oh, it's not my person. But what I was doing also was I was practicing my energy work. I was practicing my intuition. I was working with all of those different aspects of myself. And I go, okay, so I'm attracting this person. And this person's showing me, these qualities. Okay, what have I not healed in myself that's attracting that? Because if it wasn't a vibrational match, it wouldn't have worked. So, okay, I'd then take down my profile, go back to my kinesiologist and the other energy healers I was working with, and go, right, we need to sort this out. What have I not healed that's attracting that kind of quality? And then I'd put my profile back up, and I'd go to, the next couple of dates and be like, so for example, when I was working on bringing out that divine feminine aspect, all of a sudden I attracted all these men who just wanted to dominate that. And I was like, that's not why I'm bringing it out. Okay, so then I'd go back and I worked on, how do I bring that out safely? How do I bring that out so I can stand in my power without having people wanting to dominate that power? And so we worked a lot on that power within myself, so that it wasn't an energetic match for that kind of relationship. And so I actually used Tinder as a personal development tool to go on those dates, work out what it was that I still needed to heal, go back, do the healing with my profile off, and then I'd put my profile back up, do the next round.
Oh,
Do the next round.
Amanda, wait a minute. I need to caption that. I use Tinder for my personal development. Never before has that ever been a line. That's
No.
incredible.
But you know what? It's a tool.
Yeah.
And it was a channel for me to meet my person. And if I was meeting those people, I did not want a relationship like I had. And I knew that deeply. So for me to get something different, I needed to be different. I needed to be healed in those areas that were attracting that kind of dysfunctional, toxic relationship. I didn't want to go walking into another one. I wanted to walk into a relationship that was reciprocal, that was loving, that was respectful, that was not abusive, funnily enough.
Mm.
And so I did every time I went out on dates. I went out on, you know, a date with this guy who from the get-go was acting all jealous. I'm like, whoa. And
Weird.
again, yeah, but it was this immediacy. So I went back to my kinesiologist. It's like, okay, so why am I attracting that? What am I putting out? What have I not healed that is allowing that into my life? Because that's another form of control. That's another form of coercion. So I don't want that. And it's also that obviously deep seated insecurity. And so again, I started looking at all of those different aspects of myself.
Mm.
And I think it was in the October, because I'd written the big list as well. We write down all the things that we want from our person because we think that's going to help us manifest it. Um, kind of doesn't work like that.
Ooh.
But I was making this big list, and eventually I've looked at it and gone, this is just bullshit. Am I going to sit there with a clipboard and a pen and like tick all this stuff off? And you've made about 50%. Should we give this a try or not? These are things I want. Now, who am I to make those demands on another person? This is how you must be, or you're not accepted by me. I believe that was just the marriage I left. Anyway, burned the list in my little outback, my outdoor fire pit. And I realized that that entire list just needed to be the one word of reciprocity. I wanted to get back what I gave out. It didn't have to be in the same way. It doesn't have to be in the same way. It just needs to be an energetic exchange that is close to equal. Some days you're going to have nothing to give the other person, but if they've got something to give, then it will all even out in the wash. And once I realized that, it was like this massive weight got lifted off my shoulder. I'm not looking for, somebody to fulfill all these needs for me. I can fulfill those. I don't need somebody to live up to all of these expectations because they're going to fail. I'm setting them up to fail. I can't have a list of how I expect you to behave. What I can do is look at how I want to be in a relationship. How do I want to show up? How do I want to be when shit hits the fan and we're out of the honeymoon period and we're in the middle of an argument? Because that's going to happen. I hate to tell you, we're all human. And so, how do I want to be in that moment? Do I want to be that angry, bitter, resentful woman that I was in my marriage because I wasn't seen and wasn't heard? No, I still want to be able to be as loving as I can in the middle of the relationship when we are arguing. Because that to me shows that we are safe to have disagreements and that those disagreements don't mean there's something wrong with us. It just means that we're two different people who have different ideas on things. And if we have love and respect, we can always come to some kind of acceptance of where the other person's at, even if we don't understand. And so that was kind of where I was starting to look at, how do I want to be? How do I want to show up for my partner? How do I want to be for me in the relationship? And that's when everything started to really change, because I was starting to look in at what I could provide for the other person rather than having expectations of what they should be providing to me. And that paradigm shift was amazing. And then I still remember it was on a Wednesday night. I'd had a massively, like hugely emotional day with people in clinic, just massive emotional releases and really big breakthroughs. And I didn't get a break between clients because often when that happens, we run over a little bit. And so my 15-minute gap was being eaten up by, the actual sessions. And then I was running a women's circle. And I remember I got home and I poured myself a glass of wine for dinner because I had, wasn't the most self-loving thing.
No, I
But
know
I
those
got
nights.
home. Oh, yeah. I sat at home and I had my glass of wine and I rang my girlfriend because I said, I know what it is now. I said, I need somebody who can hold space for me at the end of a day where I've held space for everybody else. And I said, and you
Oh,
watch, I'll have met him within the week. I started chatting to him on the Tuesday morning.
oh
So literally
wow.
6 days later, I started chatting to him, and we had our first date on the Friday, our second date on the Saturday, our third date on the Sunday. Like it was just straight away. And as soon as I saw him walk around the corner, and I went, "Oh my God, it's you!" And my body went, "Ooh, that's a bit weird." But it was this immediacy. It took him a while to catch up, but he eventually did. It was fine. I convinced him. But it was this immediate soul knowing. And that's what I told myself I would know. You'll know
Mm,
when you meet him. Because I was learning to trust myself. I was
right.
learning to understand that my intuition, that my soul knows the path for me. It knows where I'm supposed to be heading, and therefore it knows the person who's supposed to be walking by my side.
Hmm. I love
So,
that.
yeah.
Congratulations, girl. Like that's amazing. Giving us all hope. No, but I just love that aspect of getting like so clear, like
Mm,
to just even that one word,
yeah.
reciprocity, right? Like I mean, I want to steal that for sure, but
Yeah,
also,
do it.
I want to do the work too to like maybe it's a different word or maybe really
Mm,
understand, like you said, like what it is that I want and a way that
yeah.
I want to feel. A lot of times I sometimes in my healing, like I get the fatigue of like, there's so much I need to work on, right? Like I'm
Mm,
so fucked
mm,
up. Like and like you shared, right? Every day, like you learn something new about like what
yeah.
else you need to work on. And there can be those bumps in the road. But I
Mm,
just love how like you said, like the second we can just kind of instead of like berating for all the things that we need to fix, getting clear about just what we
mm,
want, like
yeah.
right there, it opens the door for you to like start having, that
And
healthier
knowing
healing
that there's
relationship.
actually nothing to fix.
Yeah.
At the same time as we feel like there's everything to fix, you're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. You've been conditioned through society, through your culture, through, the water you swim in. You've been conditioned,
Mm,
and everything you have done to now has been to keep you safe and to keep you alive to the next day. Because that's what we're built to do. If you go back to the very first humans, when we were all living in tribes, so this isn't cultural appropriation of tribe, I just need to say that
no,
because
no.
I need to
It's
nowadays.
history.
But when we're
Yeah.
there, our brain was literally, I am accepted by my tribe or I will be cast out into the wilderness and die. And our brains are still set up to think that way. So even though we're not going of this is a live and die situation, in some part of our physiology, we are going to live or we're going to die. So I better make the choice that makes me live. So every unresourceful behavior, everything that we have ever done that is not okay is because we feel like it will help us be more accepted by those people we are around, by our community, by our tribe, by those people who will keep us safe. And even if they are not people who are keeping us safe, they're still our people. And we still, therefore, need to be accepted by them. And that's why in domestic violence situations, you see these strange behaviors coming out because they're actually the behaviors that keep them safe. And so it's really fascinating. But when we can start to just accept that part of ourselves, I still act unresourcefully at times. I've done years of unpacking this stuff. But of course I do because it's like this muscle memory. Now, the difference is I now catch it a bit sooner and I can understand why it's there. I can understand even when it started often. I can understand what's sitting underneath it. And most of the time, it is a hurt child who is just doing the best they can to get through to the next day and to still be loved by the people around them. Because as humans, we know love, in the most part, is conditional. There are conditions to our love. If my partner cheats on me, he's not going to be around long. That is a condition in my relationship. If he treats me poorly, okay, one day is fine because, that may not be, our stuff. But if it becomes a pattern, again, we'll be having a conversation because that's not okay. There are conditions. And even with my children, I always love them, but I don't always like them. I mean, let's face it, they're kids. They screw up and they're not always nice. But in that, There are conditions. And how do we then work within those conditions? We use those behaviors. So everything you have developed up till now has been for you to keep yourself safe. As you said before, you're thinking about going and having a doctor, and you know about the mortality rates for Black women in birthing. That is, of course, a really big concern. So you are going to be needing to look for professionals who can support you in that, who you feel safe with, so that you can be your wild, beautiful, pregnant, amazing goddess self through that process and feel held by those professionals around you. And that's also where I think people potentially get it wrong at times, is that they spend more time working out what pair of shoes they're going to buy or what their next car will be than they do working with these professionals who are going to help keep them safe mentally, emotionally, spiritually, whatever it is, physically. We don't spend much time. How many people ring around practitioners to work out who their therapist is going to be, who's actually helping them with their mental health? Or do they just ring the first person that their other providers or friends or whatever recommend? It's like, you've got to find the right people for you. And having those 15-minute calls with people to go, do we gel? Do we vibe? Do I feel safe with you? Do you feel like somebody who's going to hold me as I go through this? Because there's times you do feel broken and you need someone to hold you and go, darling, you're not broken. You're surviving. And that's what you've had to do. And so
Ugh.
let me hold you as you explore this part of yourself, because you're safe to do this. And you can do it, because that's why it's coming up for you right now. And that's the bit that you want to find with those people.
Mhm.
Mm.
Ugh, you just like describe all the like that I want in a relationship, that just,
Mm.
yeah, that safe space, that feeling of like I can just kind of even unravel for a second and
Yeah.
you've got me and like you can help me bring it back together and keep going.
Mm.
Can you share a little bit about like, cuz sometimes I get um, early on, right? Like
Mm.
you as you're learning about like what does it mean to feel safe in a relationship, any advice or tips about like what physically how that comes to like our understanding, or how did you know like, okay, I feel really safe with this person?
I used to feel the energy of when my ex-husband would hop off the train, because I still lived basically between the train, and I would feel my body start to contract, and I would start to almost cower, and I'd have to go, okay, am I safe right now? And I'd look around and I'd be like, you're safe. You're in your own house now. Oh, okay. Whew. And I do a bit of deep breathing, but practicing with what are those things in your body. So for me, it was literally, I could feel my heart chakra being almost pushed in and my shoulders hunching. So it was like, when you see animals trying to protect themselves on the floor, it's that kind of thing. I was curling over my heart chakra. I can't let that be seen. And then obviously it's constricting the chest. I'd pull my shoulders back. Okay, you're okay. I'd take a few deep breaths. Or I'd feel a constriction in my throat, or I'd feel the tightening of my chest. Your body will give you the clues before your brain will be able to go, I don't think this feels okay. So the more we can practice being in our body, feeling what our body is trying to tell us. The reason we're not in our body is we've been taught, again, through this separation of God and separation from the earth and this 2 to 4,000 years of history that we're hopefully coming to the end of, changing cycles in. Through this shift, no, I shouldn't say that. We are ending the cycles in, which is why everything looks so crazy and chaotic right now, because things are changing, they are shifting. We are moving into higher vibrations and frequencies and more congruent states. That's why it looks chaotic. But as we got separated from that, we were taught that our bodies were dirty, they were wrong, they were sinful. Look at how they've separated sex out of the church. Our sex is wrong and sinful unless you are getting your wife pregnant and she is holding your vital sperm, which is BS, because we're little Mother Earths. We are. We are Mother Earths. We have a womb. We create new life. And even when we're not creating new life, we are creating new projects. And men have this energy too. People of all genders have this energy. That's what our sacral chakra is. It is our womb space. It is where we get those fertile ideas, where we bring them into maturity and where we birth them into the world. And so as we're doing that, and feeling that, we've been taught that all of that connection to that is wrong. We've been taught that our connection to our body is wrong. We've been taught that our sexuality is wrong and that sex is wrong. And that, I can understand why some of these movements are happening the way they are right now, because they, from an archetypal point of view, it is all these hurt children running around pretending to be adults, but they're not doing it in an adult way. They're doing it as their hurt child and their hurt toddler. And they're doing it in that, in that archetypal way rather than in their mature adult. And it's quite fascinating watching a lot of this stuff from that archetypal point of view, from the energetic point of view. But when we tap into ourself, your body knows the answer well before anything else does. That's how, as soon as I saw my partner walk around this cafe, I was like, oh my God, it's him. I felt it in my body. And that was where I went, oh, this is interesting. Because every other person I'd walked in for a date with, I went, oh, not you.
Yeah.
Now I've got to sit and have a coffee with you. Okay. energetically, I knew it wasn't a match. I knew it wasn't a match. And so it's just as we get more comfortable being in our body and exploring these feelings that we've been taught to distrust and not like and not allow and to be afraid of, it gives us this massive freedom, because you will feel it. You will feel this little tightening of chest going, and your body will go, I don't feel safe right now. Okay, so thank you so much for your time. It's been really lovely meeting you, but I'm really looking for my person in this journey. And you know what? I really hope you find your person too. That was what I end up saying to people in some form or another. Even if we were just chatting through the app, I would write something along those lines. Thank you so much for chatting with me. I've really enjoyed it, but I am here to look for my person. And I just don't feel that connection with you. And I really trust what I feel. I really wish you all the best. And I hope your person's out there. Good luck. Because I thought, you know what? Even if they don't accept that, that's the way I'm feeling, and I want to send them that love. I want to send them that generosity. And you're not always getting generous people through these apps, by the way. It's not always like that. But again, people would then either block me, or I'd end up giving them 48 hours to read the message, and then I'd, unmatch or whatever. But I worked out, if I could be the most gracious I could be, if I could be the most loving I could be, if I knew deep down that I was the one who was going to keep myself safe, I didn't need safety on that list of somebody to provide for me, because I was going to do that for me. I'm not letting myself in a situation where safety is even a question anymore. And from the very get-go, I felt safe with my partner because I knew I would keep myself safe.
Wow.
I knew it. And all of a sudden, safety is off the table. Because if you feel unsafe with someone, you're not going to start a relationship with them if you have that self-trust of going, yeah, no, that's not for me.
That's it. And that's the culmination of all the work that I need to do, is just really trusting self, really getting clear, practicing, feeling the way that I want to feel in a relationship. Amanda, this has been incredible. I have still so many more questions. I want to have you back sometime. Maybe we can keep the conversation
I would love
going.
to chat with you.
Really quickly, can you let folks know how they can find you and keep up with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm at amandakate.com.au. So remember the .au, obviously, for Australia. You can find all my social links there. So it's easier just to give you the one link and you guys can work it out. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for talking with me today.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate you. Awesome.
Yeah, you too. It's been so wonderful.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Healing Through Love. If you have any comments or questions about today's episode, feel free to reach out on social media at solidarity_media. Also, you can head to the show notes of this episode to find links and ways to get connected with today's guest. Thank you so much for listening. I look forward to talking with you guys in the next episode. Bye.